All right, we're a quarter of the way through the season. Mathis and I have been doing a lot of bets this NFL season. I'd say we are mostly going down, not fully, but it's some of them have been more annoying and heartbreaking than others. But I feel pretty good about a lot of these this week, and I know Mathis does too. And just because you lose on one week doesn't mean you're not gonna potentially hit gold the next week. So it's a week by week basis. So we're back and we're ready to go ahead and hit some bets here. Quick episode. We're going to go ahead and tell you some of our favorite bets for this week, week number 5. This is Thursday night, so the Thursday game has already happened, so that will obviously not be included. Mathis, how are you doing today? Are you ready to get some of these bets going?
Yeah, always ready to go. I think early in the season is definitely a little bit harder too because we don't really know how teams are going to be playing and who's going to break out this year. Like nobody saw the Colts as being a great team to begin the year, so there's always a lot of things fluctuating early in the NFL season. So there's no shame in being a little bit cold to start off, but I'm hopeful we'll get some things rolling here in week number 5 for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Really hard in the beginning of the year to predict a lot of stuff. You got the Packers going from demolishing the Lions, who we thought were maybe down and out, and then the Lions obliterating the Ravens, and then the Packers getting beaten by the Browns. So stuff it's so hard to predict early season stuff, but we're a good amount in. A lot of injuries have happened, so some of the bets I think we can maybe feel a little more confident about. First one, both of us actually have this. I changed mine a little bit. It is Vikings and Browns, the under. Mathis has the under. I believe it was at 35.5 as we're recording this. I moved it to whether you can bet this alone. Obviously, the odds are not going to be as good, but you compare it. I moved mine to 38.5 on the under. I think 35, it's obviously good, but from what I looked at from both teams, I feel like it's a slight bait with the 35, so I try to give myself at least a field goal cushion there. We'll see how this number fares. I'm sure everyone's going to be betting the under, so maybe if you don't feel comfortable going over in that game, just moving it up a few points and then betting the under might end up feeling better. But both of us have that. I think it's pretty obvious. Lots of question marks on offenses for both these teams. Very good defenses on both these teams. Obviously, the under is something you're going to clearly pick there. So I think it's kind of obvious. And then one that I have personally added to that is Browns plus 3.5. I think, obviously with how these teams have been, I think it's obviously going to be a low-scoring game. I want to take the spread if it's a plus 3.5 when it's going to be such a low-scoring game. The odds of it just being closer are pretty high when it's low-scoring. And I know it's a rookie quarterback. I believe Dylan Gabriel is going to be starting. But they could easily lose like 13-10 with what the Vikings have had on offense the last week. I know they obliterated a team that they played, but there wasn't really much competition going on there with the Bengals when the Vikings played them. Vikings also have some injuries on defense. I think the Browns defense it's literally the best in the NFL, and I don't think people understand that. Defensive Player of the Year, they're healthy. I think they're just really going to put a ton of pressure on the Vikings offense. And even if Dylan Gabriel doesn't come out and play very well, again, I still think plus 3.5 is solid value, especially when it's going to be a low-scoring game. The odds of it just being a closer game when it's lower scoring, that's just a good bet to make. So those are the two I have, and my takeaways for the Vikings-Browns is we both have those bets for that game. Not both of us have the Browns, but we both have the under for what might be an underwhelming game.
Yeah, I think the only thing there, I said this in the past, I'm a little bit kind of scared to say this now, is just the riskiness of having these two quarterbacks with Dylan Gabriel making his first start against Brian Flores' scheme and then Carson Wentz, who's been kind of turning it over a lot, is if we just see a couple turnovers that lead to some short fields and then that can kind of run up the total a little bit. So that's kind of the one area I'm a little bit scared, but I think we could just see the Browns have a very conservative game plan with Gabriel and just kind of not really have a ton of explosives down the field, which would in turn create more punt opportunities, I guess, for the Vikings defense. And I think another interesting part about that game is it is another game overseas. I think this one's going to be in London. So another thing there where maybe they come out a little bit slow. I guess the Vikings may be a little bit used to that time, which who knows, maybe that could be an advantage. But the Browns for sure probably should have a little bit of a slow start with that time change.
Yeah. All right. So do the next bet that you have that we also both have. This one we
Okay.
have we're both totally in on this one player versus certain defense.
Yeah, so I think Tedero McMillan is just very overdue for his first NFL touchdown. He's come close a couple times, but just really hasn't been able to actually get in, find the end zone. The Dolphins have the worst defense in the league if you look at really every single statistic. We were kind of looking at this before we got on air. Every game so far, so it was against the Colts and Daniel Jones, Drake May and the Patriots, Josh Allen and the Bills, and Justin Fields this past weekend. All of them have over 100 passer rating against this Dolphins defense. And I'm not as high on Bryce Young as you are, but I would hope that he could kind of have some sort of success again against a defense that is really, really struggling right now. And T-Mac is getting definitely by far the most targets in that offense. So I just think we could see a good day from him. Maybe like a little breakout performance where he has a touchdown or two. So I like T-Mac to finally find the end zone. He's been kind of one of the few bright spots so far on this Panthers offense and team.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. He's been really the main weapon on offense. Miami defense, you mentioned, not playing well. And most of it, I think, we knew the secondary wasn't going to be good. It's the pass rushing that's been, like, non-existent. They're bottom 5 in terms of sacks and pressures, and they spent a ton of just resources on that D-line. So, and the pass rushing with edge rushers. So, with that being not amazing, obviously your defense is just going to look even worse. So with that, maybe this is the 1 week that they get it together. But even if it is, I think Tet is he needs to be getting more targets. I just still don't think he's getting enough. And I think in this game, like you said, kind of due for his first touchdown. But in terms of I'm also going to be taking him to get at least 60 plus receiving yards, and then his over on his 4.5 receptions. Those both seem like pretty good bets to make as well. So that's Tet McMillan versus the Dolphins. And then the next bet, I'll do one for me, and then we can swap to you because I don't think we have any more that are the same. This one, I'm going to go Cowboys minus 2.5 versus the Jets. The Cowboys, I think they clearly win their games in shootouts. The Jets do not want to do that. They absolutely do not want to have a shootout. The pass rush and defense has not been there for New York as we expected. Dallas, the best way to go ahead and get to them and potentially have them lose is obviously if you can go tit for tat with them in terms of passing, but if you have a great pass rush that really disrupts them, because the Cowboys O-line is not amazing and the Jets have just not shown that recently this season. So I think Dallas could just potentially take advantage of that, and I don't know if they can. I just don't think the Jets can go up to snuff with the Cowboys in a shoot 'em up. It just back and forth passing. I don't think the Jets can do that. So give me the Cowboys minus 2.5 as well. A pretty short line. And that's one that I feel relatively good about. I mean, it's at New York, and anything could happen because the Cowboys defense and their secondary is not amazing. But I just don't think they can really handle the Cowboys maybe just heavy passing offense that they might bring.
Yeah, kind of similar teams. The Jets defense has been really bad to start this season as well, but the difference is the Cowboys offense has been a lot more consistent, and I just trust the quarterback and Dak more. So I don't hate that, especially with the Jets coming off a short week, obviously playing on Monday night. But again, never know with that Cowboys defense and their secondary. For me, I have the Denver Broncos plus 3.5 circled. I just think the Eagles are due for some sort of regression. They've not really played well, I would say, so far this season, and they're somehow 4-0. Like, I feel like in almost every game you could kind of say, wow, they escaped with the win there, or they shouldn't have won that one. I mean, you had the block kicks against the Los Angeles Rams. They kind of escaped against the Cowboys because CeeDee Lamb could not catch the ball. And then even last week against the Buccaneers, I mean, they had a lot of chances to come back and win that game, and the Eagles really struggled in that second half. So I think we kind of see two teams where the Broncos are playing a lot better as of recent. They started the year with a couple losses, and people are like, are the Broncos overrated? I know the competition hasn't been as good. They just beat up on the Bengals, but I like how their defense has been playing. The Eagles' offensive line's been a little bit shaken up with injuries as well. So I think the Broncos can keep this game close, and I just kind of view this as a spot where maybe the Eagles win by a field goal again, but it's going to be a close game, and I think Sean Payton's going to have a little bit something ready to go at Philadelphia.
Yeah, I was tempted to look at that line as well. I just didn't want to touch it because I have no clue. Again, like the Eagles could literally win by, I don't know, blocking a punt next game, like, and taking for a touchdown on the last play. Like, I could see that happening because that's just the Eagles. I said to me, it kind of feels like the Eagles of like 2 years ago when they lost their coordinators for the first, or maybe it was 3 years ago at this point, where they lost their coordinators for the first time, and after that Super Bowl appearance, and they like have these crazy wins in the beginning of the season, and then they lose like, I don't know, 7 games in a row or 6 games in a row, go into the playoffs and get smoked. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but the way they're winning these games is just not sustainable. So, but we've seen it happen before with them because they just the roster's just so good. So, I'm not necessarily gonna, say I would bet that, but I could easily see the logic there because at some point the Eagles are going to be coming down. Like, hey, you can't just go multiple halves without even completing a pass, and they've done that like twice. So, yeah, at some point, some teams got to take advantage of that. Good one there. For me, next is going to be Kansas City -3.5 versus Jacksonville. I just don't think the Jaguars are up to par with Kansas City right now. And I think with Worthy back, that only emphasizes the point. They had the best looking game that they've looked all year last year. Kansas City did. Jacksonville has been able to win games, but I don't think they've really played a team that's like the level of Kansas City is right now. They really haven't. And I just think these are two completely different levels. Kansas City is 3.5 point favorites. I think they win by at least, 20-24. Like, you could easily see that happening, even if it's a close, which that would be a close game, and they still cover. I think they'd win by a touchdown or more. So give me Kansas City -3.5 with Xavier Worthy back. They look much better. Even if it's at Jacksonville, I just feel like Jacksonville's offense, no one has been playing good on the offense except Travis Etienne. That's like basically it. And I think Kansas City's defense is going to shut that down. And even if Jacksonville's defense has been good, I just don't think they played an offense as – I'm not saying Kansas City's offense is amazing or explosive, but it's obviously very good experience. They're clutch. I just don't think they played someone like that. So give me Kansas City -3.5 versus Jacksonville.
Yeah, Jacksonville's also been pretty fortunate. I think they're like the first team I read in NFL history to start their first 4 games of the season and have 3+ turnovers forced in each one of those games. So it's been a little bit lucky, I would say, like to an extent. Like forcing turnovers takes some skill, but there's also a little bit of luck kind of wavered in there a little bit. So another thing that we could kind of look on and bet against, where if the Jags don't force 3 turnovers against a Kansas City team that does a great job at taking care of the football, it's going to be a little bit harder and more challenging for them to win, theoretically, right? So I don't mind that as well. I mean, I kind of want to believe in this Jaguars team, but I just can't do it yet because I don't think they've really beaten anybody that impressive, kind of like what you said. So I'll be interested to see how this one plays out. I think it's actually a primetime game as well, so that should be pretty fun to watch. Another one of my plays is the Arizona Cardinals, -7.5 against the Tennessee Titans. And for me, I think as long as Brian Callahan is the head coach in Tennessee, I might just look to fade his team like every week. I think he's the worst head coach in the NFL, and I don't know if the Titans are like playing for him anymore. It's like really weird because if you just kind of watch their games and just see some of the decisions that he makes and then kind of how the team responds like in the second half, like it's gotten really, really ugly. They stayed kind of close with the Texans last week. It was 6-0 entering the fourth quarter, and then just all hell broke loose, and they lost 26-0. So I just think this Titans team is really bad, and Brian Callahan and the coaching staff is a big reason why. They have the number 1 overall pick at quarterback. They have fairly decent weapons. Like Calvin Ridley is a pretty solid player. So is Tony Pollard. And they just can't move the ball. Like they have no offense whatsoever. Their defense eventually just bottoms out. It's kind of like what happened last year for them, where their defense was pretty good to start the season. Their offense is so bad they can't move the ball. Then their defense gets tired, and then they just get blown out. So I think again we could see that the Cardinals have extended rest. They played on Thursday Night Football, and I think they kind of need a win. They've had 2 straight losses now, so this is a good bounce back spot for them. I like the Cardinals to kind of blow out the Titans, and the Fire Callahan crowd, gets a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, no one's going to be like, hey, you shouldn't be betting against the Titans. Like, that's just not a thing. So, even if it's a high over in 7.5 instead of 6.5, obviously the 6.5 is ideal. 7.5 is obviously, harder with it being a touchdown over, but either way, yeah, I mean, they just look terrible. So good bet there. And if you want to add one, Kyler Murray rushing touchdown. I think with the 2 running backs out, they might tell him, hey, use your legs a little more, draw up some more plays with him being one of the more dynamic runners they'd have on the roster. And if he doesn't score this week, bet him to rush a touchdown next week, because the longest he's ever gone without running the ball in the end zone himself is 5 weeks. So if he doesn't have a rushing touchdown this week, I would bet him to do it next week, because that would mean it'd be the longest stretch he'd have. And if anything, it's more likely because they lost both of their starting running backs, who were both supposed to get good cut touches, and they didn't really add anyone. So I think Kyler Murray, maybe you could do a little Cardinals -7.5 Kyler Murray rushing touchdown. Might be a good parlay there. My next one, I have 2 more. Just talked about Cowboys Jets. I'm going to add on, except I'm not going to do a Cowboy. I'm going to do a Jet, and that's Garrett Wilson over 62.5 receiving yards and at least 5 receptions. This is going to be, obviously we mentioned, I believe the Cowboys are probably going to win this game because I don't think the Jets can handle the just back and forth passing. But that doesn't mean Garrett Wilson, if they try and do that, is going to be the main guy that Justin Fields is going to go to try and keep up with the Cowboys. This is also versus the worst passing defense. He has been the clear main and only wide receiver. I think you could also add a touchdown here. If you just want to go all Garrett Wilson, I am totally on board. Over receptions, over receiving yards, a touchdown. I think he's going to have a big game. He's scored a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games because, I mean, one, he's playing pretty well. I mean, this kind of feels like a Tet McMillan kind of career arc, to be honest, with the guys he's had. But Justin Fields is not inept. He's not amazing, but he can get the ball to Garrett Wilson, and he's shown that 4 weeks in a row. And he's going to have way more chances to do that versus a Cowboys offense that's going to be making sure the Jets are throwing to get into the game, and they're going to be throwing against a bottom 2 passing defense. So I really like Garrett Wilson having a big game over on everything versus the Cowboys.
Yep, another good bet. Just fade the Cowboys secondary. I'm fine with that. Wilson's really been the only, I think he's like really their only weapon that they have, especially for wide receivers. I mean, he's got like way more targets than anybody else. So I don't mind that at all. And my last play is another player prop as well. I'm going to go Woody Marks of the Houston Texans to find the end zone. He had 2 last week against the Titans, and he's become a huge point of the Texans offense, which is cool. I don't know why it took them so long to start utilizing some of the rookies that they drafted this year because, yeah, Woody Marks is better than 2025 Nick Chubb. I think, again, against this Ravens defense that has, I mean, it's pretty unbelievable how many players for them are on the injury report, how many players are going to be out for this game. So I think Woody Marks could just be a guy that finds the end zone again for Houston. The Ravens defense has been historically bad to start this season, and with all these injuries, I just find it hard to believe that he's not going to find the end zone. I mean, if he's going to continue to have, I think last week he had more snaps than Nick Chubb, so he's now officially pretty much the running back 1 for now. I think Woody Marks is going to find the end zone again, and the Texans, another sneaky team to kind of look at because that spread's gotten down a little bit. So, yeah, I like Woody Marks to score again this week.
All right, and then for the final bet, my last one, I feel pretty confident about this one. We already talked about the matchup here, but I'm actually going to go an under for a player, which I don't think we've had yet, and that's going to be Jordan Mason. I'm going under on his rushing yards. 67.5 rushing yards is what he's projected, and I feel really good about this one. It is going to be versus Cleveland's defense, which has been, as we mentioned, literally one of the best defenses in the NFL. They have never let one player this year even reach over this mark, except Jahmyr Gibbs. That was it. And trust me, Jordan Mason is not Jahmyr Gibbs. He's only even hit this mark 1 time this year. Jordan Mason did. He only hit over 67.5 rushing yards once, and I pretty sure it was against a rushing defense that was not very good. Not to mention, I mean, the Browns obviously very talented with the run defense, but they're probably already going to make sure they prioritize that anyways because they're not facing some world beater at quarterback you mentioned with Carson Wentz. So I don't see why they wouldn't even just prioritize stopping the run there. So with the under in this game, I'm surprised the line is so high for this one. Even if he's going to get majority of the carries, I just don't think he's going to really hit this number. We've seen the Browns defense shut down a lot of really good running backs. So, yeah, I'm going to go fade Jordan Mason here, and I'm going to have him go under 67.5 rushing yards.
I hope for my fantasy team's sake that he doesn't go under his rush yards, but again, yeah, I think we could see a very slow, grinded out kind of game against the Browns. Just see two defenses put on master classes. So I think I kind of like your philosophy on a lot of these bets this week. Just fade the bad defenses and then, put your faith in the good ones. I think that's a pretty good trend long term. So I got no issue with that.
Well, you'd think, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But ideally, if you bet these individually, I think we're going to be making at least some good profit there. So those are our bets for the week. We feel pretty good about them. We'll see how we do, and then obviously look at the next week, week 6. We got a fun game coming up in this matchup. We mentioned it already, Dolphins-Panthers. I'm a Panthers fan. He's a Dolphins fan. He, funny enough, doesn't want the Dolphins to win. But either way, we'll be watching that game, and that'll be fun. And we'll be rooting on Ted McMillan to go ahead and hit his over. So if you want to join on any of these bets with us, please go ahead. Put him in your parlay, put him in a single, and let's go ahead and make some money because I think a lot of these are going to be pretty good. But anyways, that's it for me. And Mathis, thank you for joining me on this episode. Stay smart, stay sharp, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.